Well, thank you for joining me and welcome to this channel, especially if this is your first time. You are very warmly welcome to this channel where we believe that we're helping to raise a new generation of leadership suitably trained and developed and equipped for the challenges, the very unique challenges of our generation. And it is your first time here or you are yet to subscribe, then I will ask that if you can subscribe to this channel, that would be very greatly appreciated. In today's video, I talk about the subject of dependability, and this is under our series on the principles of productivity. So under the principles of productivity, we talk today about dependability. Dependability is one of the very crucial, critical characteristics of very effective and relevant leaders. So dependability is one of the key things that make things happen in life. What does it mean to be dependable? So to be dependable means that you are reliable and you can be trusted upon to get things done or to do things. And as I said before, the very foundation of life and the fact that we are able to get about our duties normally without any issues, the fact that we are able to experience day and night, depends on the systems that have been put in place at creation. So for example, our lives and stability depend on some of these creations and the fact that they work almost like clockwork. I can cite examples in, for example, the solar system, gravity, for example. So everywhere you go, even if as a result of time differences, the sun is showing up at different times to other parts of the world, you can trust that there would be sunrise, there would be sunset. Now, of course, depending on the timings and the seasons, the sun is not going to be available or exposed for the same length of time at all times. But even that in itself, the fact that some of these systems follow these patterns, consistently, is a sign of their dependability. So at some point in the year, depending on which geographical region in the world you are, you would expect winter. And winter would invariably come. There would be the summer. There will be other parts of the world that they may not follow exactly the same patterns of summer, autumn, winter, spring, but they would have their own patterns which are set and consistently happen, which makes it very dependable. And as I said, the very foundation of life is based on these systems and the fact that we can rely on them. Now, when you walk in, for example, gravity is a very key consideration. The fact that we are able to successfully walk about or run without tripping or having any accidents like that is the fact that we can count on gravity. So if you move your leg, then gravity would bring it down. Unlike in space, where the effect of gravity is not the same. So people have to learn to do what is called moonwalking, because when you lift a leg or a finger, there is no gravity acting on it. So gravity is one of these systems that we can relate to. Now, these laws that I refer to are fixed, and as a result, we can plan our lives around them. So we know, for example, what time to wake up, what time to go to sleep. So if you've got work the next day, you can go to sleep in the hope and expectation that There would be the next morning, sunrise. If you haven't got an alarm, for example, there are people who depend on what they see outside when they look through the windows to get up. You know, this might not be very sensible in all parts of the world, because there are parts of the world when even at 7 o'clock, the sun will still not be up, depending on what part of the season or what season of the year it is. But as I said, depending on what geographical region, for each region, there is some consistency, there is some dependability. Now, applied to people who are dependable are consistent, they are punctual, and you can count on them to be there. Now, such people are sometimes very difficult to replace. It is said, and it is a fact, that no one is indispensable in life, and that without you, people manage somehow. So it is a big mistake when people have such a high sense of importance of themselves and feel that without them, things cannot move. So without you, people can still go on and life can still function. But if we are dependable, then we make ourselves difficult to replace, so that when you are not there, it is not so easy to get people to do what you do. That is not an ideal state. So ideally, with succession planning and all, we should be able to get people to understudy us, do the roles that we do, so that in the event that we are not there. But what is positive is to get that attitude to work, such that you give out so much, you put in so much, but when you are not there, even though you can be replaced, it doesn't come easy. I have a friend who made a comment, which is true, that there are some people who are so difficult to replace that when they are not there, you cannot replace them like for like with another person. You need almost a committee to replace them. And that is what dependable people look like. If you study successful people, of course, not all successful people are the same. They may show some different characteristics, but some of the common characteristics that most, if not all, successful people show include the following. The fact that they are prompt and make a good use of their time. They make good use of their time. So successful people are punctual, if not always, most of the time, especially in relation to the most important things. There would be things that they don't consider or put a high premium on. They don't think it's too important, so they may pay less attention or apply less urgency to. But in general, for the critical things that they need to get done, they are punctual, they are on time, and they do it diligently. Successful people, in many cases, if not all, will keep their word and would expect other people to do same. So if a successful person says that, I'm going to do this, I'm going to spend time doing this, I'm going to be here at this time, you can trust and can bet that they would be there. They are consistent. They are always there doing the same things. So for example, in a big company, the high achievers, the very successful people, the best examples, the people who demonstrate the best in class, or who are sort of the benchmarks that others emulate or want to be like, are people who are consistent. If, for example, they come to work at 7 o'clock in the morning, you can bet that they would be there every day at 7 o'clock, barring circumstances that are beyond their control. If for whatever reason they cannot be there as expected, successful people, because they attach a premium on being punctual, on being there, on being true to their word, would send a message in advance to let people know that for this and that reason, I am not going to be there today as expected. They are stable and predictable. Not only have they got consistent routines, but they are very predictable. I know people, for example, who would call a relative, say, or their relatives at 8 o'clock every evening. And you can bet that 8 p.m. they will be sat by the phone. There are some, even I've known people who will be literally sat by the phone 7:59 waiting for 8 o'clock. So not 1 minute earlier, not 1 minute later. I am not talking about getting obsessive with things. That I know that there are people who tend to be obsessed, and there are even medical conditions about obsessive disorders and all that, but that is not what I'm suggesting. So it is not just the fact of doing things in a certain way, some rigidity, but understanding that this is the timing for things to be done, this is the expectation, and then getting it done. Now, if you read through the Bible generally agrees to being consistent, especially in relation to time. I said that one of the characteristics of successful people is that they are generally punctual and on time. Now, the Bible says that we should redeem the time because the days are evil. And that talks about the successful or the effective and efficient management of time, doing things in a timeous and in a timely manner. The Bible also admonishes that we should let our yes be yes and our no, no. So that just like dependable people, we should not sway between opinions. Because the Bible says that an unstable person would not achieve much. So if we are not stable, we don't achieve much. We have to have some certainty. So it's either you're going to do it or not. Now, I do entirely agree that not everything can be black or white. Some are in between. But even then, if it is a choice in between, we have to be definite, we have to be consistent, and not halt, as the Bible says, between opinions, but we have to be consistent, we have to be firm if it has to do with choices. Now, when we do these things, when we are punctual, when we are dependable, when we are on time and we value the use of our time as well as the time of others, we create values in us that makes people understand and consider us as responsible, trustworthy, and dependable. There is a saying that if you've got a job that needs doing, then give it to the person who is busy. Now that sounds almost ironic. Why would you add more responsibility to people who are busy? And it is simply because they've developed a track record of getting things done. When they cannot do it, they will let you know, or they will tell you when it can be done. And once they've given their word, you can be sure that they will live up to that. When we are undependable, which is the opposite to the principle we're talking about today, we become known for arriving late or being absent, finding excuses all the time. So people who are consistently late or absent would always be looking for a reason or an explanation. And if you look for an excuse, you would always find one why things should not be done at a certain time or in a certain way. And sometimes, if not most of the time, people who are not dependable, who are late, who are absent, would find reasons and sometimes even lying to cover up. And why that is an easy temptation to get into, it is quite dangerous because lying to cover up one's lack of dependability, lack of punctuality, and not being there in itself adds to that original flaw of not being dependable. In the Bible, there is a very stark example, very significant example of someone who was not reliable. And I'm talking about Jonah in the book of Jonah. Now, Jonah's story is a very common story that many of us would have heard and know the details, so I'm not going to go into the exact details on this occasion. But in Jonah chapter 1, Jonah the prophet had been sent by God to go to Nineveh and then to warn the people about impending judgment. Now, as a prophet of God, God expected Jonah to do just one thing, to go and then to warn them, to give the message that God had given. But Jonah had other plans and thoughts. Now, he might have been justified in his rationalization. It doesn't make it correct, but in his own mind, there might have been valid reasons why he shouldn't or he couldn't do it. But the bottom line, as far as God was concerned, was that Jonah was not there and was not where he had to be and did not do what he had to do. So that makes him simply not reliable, not dependable. Thankfully, Jonah thought twice after the experience he got. And then he decided this time to respond to it, so he had a second chance. But unfortunately, not everybody would have a second chance, which makes it critical and important that whenever required, we should be as dependable and as reliable as we can and we are expected to be. Can we blame the lack of dependability on culture? I know, for example, that in some cultures, people tend to be more punctual, more reliable, more dependable than others. And I am aware too of others where the tendency not to be dependable, not to be reliable, is often very prominent. So there are societies where, for example, if you commissioned an artisan or somebody, you commission somebody to get a task done, you're going to pay them, almost invariably they would deliver what you expect and on time. And there are people too in certain societies. For example, you can find a skilled designer, tailor to do something for you, to make a dress for an event. And I am very conversant with cultures where, skillful as the people are, there would be so many excuses why the task has not been done at the time that it had to be done. So there are cultural trends in this, but should that be an excuse? And I say no. People, wherever they are, must take personal responsibility and be dependable on their own steam. It should be a decision that people make independent of whatever is happening around them and within their society. We must be responsible, we must be accountable for our personal promptness and dependability. We cannot, of course, influence what others do, the fact that others will not be on time, but we should be responsible for what we do and being on time. And if we do that, people wouldn't spend time sitting around waiting for us because we are not there, and we can't help show and give a good example of what needs to be done to enhance our dependability. First of all, we must recognize that it is wrong not to be on time. Don't make an appointment if you don't think or you are not planning to make it. So if you don't think it can be done, then don't give your word. Or if in your mind you know you are not going to be there, don't give your word to do it. Dependability and punctuality are habits that we need to develop and cultivate. If we do these, then people believe in us and in our words, and people will describe us as being responsible people who keep to their word, that we are dependable and predictable. And these are all very good and excellent characteristics that successful leaders demonstrate. We must be the go-to person when things need to be done. And it's this, when we are dependable, we honor our word, we say what we mean and we mean what we say. We become people of integrity, and integrity is a very critical characteristic of great leaders. Now, I like something that one of my bosses said, a while ago. I had been barely in the job for a year, and we had to do evaluation. And he said something that stuck with me, which I was really pleased about. It was unconscious to me, but then he said that I like the fact that I can give you a job and I can forget about it knowing that it will get done. And that was a really good testimony that encouraged me to do even better what I do. Now, in conclusion, let me say that dependability is a powerful character trait that if you want to be an effective and a good leader, you must develop. God delights in us when we are dependable and reliable. Now, the next time you go to a meeting, or if you are given a task to do, rate yourself on the dependability scale, on the punctuality scale, and it might surprise you how you do or your performance. But don't forget that people all around you would know this already. He who is dependable is like the sun. It is even there when the storm is raging. Don't forget that a minute wasted is a minute lost forever. Well, that is about all that time would allow on this video. Thank you very much for your time. I hope that you found this useful, and if you did, I will encourage you to do two things: to subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so already, and to share this with your friend. And don't forget to keep coming back to this channel for more videos like this. Thank you very much once again for your time, and I will see you again very soon in the next video. God bless.